Matthews. Now, today we're talking to Korbett Matthews in his Montreal studio. Korbett is a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker who has also worked and lived abroad for quite a bit. Korbett, what is your latest project?
Well, right now, Fritz, I'm working on two new films. One film is my first feature documentary, which is called the India Space Opera. And it's a film that kind of plays with documentary conventions. Essentially, it's a film that's going to take place in the year 2030. So I'm going to be bringing the viewer into a voyage into India of the year 2030, the year that India becomes the largest country on the planet, that they launch a man into space, and I'm going to examine a number of challenges that India is facing. So I'm shooting it like a documentary conventionally, but the narration is going to allow us to believe that we are experiencing the future. So I'm following a number of different narratives for this film. Quite essentially, how it's going to work is I'm shooting close to maybe 20 to 25 short films within a film, and it's going to be edited together as an actual, as one day in the life of India. So it's going to be edited from day to night, and I'm going to interweave all these personal stories. And I've actually shot about a third of the film so far. And I'm going back to India in June for another 3-week shoot. So it's a process film. But there's that project that I'm working on, and I'm pretty excited because it marks a return for me into my love of cinematic documentary storytelling, and that is really kind of focusing on image-driven films that can transport the viewer into a different realm. Apart from that, I'm working on another film, which is a documentary. I'm adapting this book. It's called One Soldier's War in Chechnya by Arkady Babchenko. And he fought on the Chechen front twice, and he's now a journalist. And so I'm going to be adapting his life story for the screen. And so I have to make a trip as well to Moscow, perhaps this summer. We'll see if everything goes accordingly. So I've got those two films. And I'm also producing a couple other projects too. I've got one film that I'm working on now with another director, which is about Kurdistan. So we're looking at following 4 characters, one in Iraq, one in Syria, one in Iran, and one in Turkey for Kurdish people. And I have a few other projects on the go, but that's concretely what I'm doing right now.
So going back to the India project, how did you get involved in this? What was so interesting about that particular theme for you?
Well, my older brother married into an Indian family, so I've been in contact with Indian culture for some time. But I think also because India is such a fascinating place, I know a lot of people have been looking at China really as China the awakening dragon. And so there's been a lot of documentaries that have been focused on China, but I think that India perhaps is more fascinating because they have the English language, because they're going to bypass China. They will become the largest population and largest democracy in the world by 2030, and they're kind of growing at a staggering rate. And I think there's a lot in India which is really interesting to us in the West, in terms of looking at the caste system, Hindu nationalism, religion and myth. And so I was drawn towards India. For what reason, I can't exactly say. It just kind of, I found out there was a moon mission, and I said of all countries that should be investing on Earth and not sending people into space. I thought that was an interesting paradox. So I got a little bit of money to travel to India to write the screenplay, and then I raised money through various funding sources to start production. But I still need more money. It's never enough. So I'm actually right now I'm still looking for a broadcaster, because I've managed to raise money without a broadcaster. So I'm looking to kind of get someone else on board. But unfortunately, in North America, unfortunately, we currently have a fairly conservative government in Canada that's cut a number of funding sources for filmmakers, and that is anti-arts. And also because of the economic crisis, television itself is suffering. There's been a loss of revenue from advertising. Therefore, with less advertising money, broadcasters aren't commissioning projects like they were 4 or 5 years ago. And in Canada, a lot of national television streams that primarily screen documentary work have been axed and canceled. So the market for documentaries has gotten smaller. The number of documentary filmmakers have risen. And so essentially the pie is smaller for a lot more people. So it's pretty tough times for filmmaking in Canada right now, but things will rebound. The economy's coming back. So
your second project and also the last project, they're not really anything connected to India. What brought you to those projects?
Well, regarding to the project on Chechnya, I've been really interested in Chechnya for quite some time, primarily because it was a very brutal war, and it's an ongoing war. Even though Russia has claimed that the operations are finished and the war is over, there are still extrajudicial killings. A number of human rights lawyers and activists have been murdered in the past year and a half. So it's still a very dirty war, and the West has turned a blind eye to this war. And one of the first films I ever made when I was at film school at Concordia in Montreal was a movie called Devouring Buddha, which was a film I shot entirely in slow motion on a 16mm Bolex. And I really liked examining the kind of the ghosts of genocide and the memory of war. I think that to understand war is to understand the human condition. Like, why do we kill each other? Why do we rape and pillage villages and kill children? And there's a lot of inhumanity to man. And so I think that this film, I want to go back to that same territory to try and understand conflict myself. I find it, and I'm drawn to places of death for some reason. Although I'm a pretty funny kind of guy, I'm drawn to kind of some darker things in human nature. So this is something that I just want to examine. But now the question is, I have 2 kids. Should I really be going to Chechnya? So we'll have to see what happens there. I've been warned by people not to go because there are still a lot of journalists who are kidnapped, and so I probably will go start the research in Moscow and see what I can build out of archives, and then think about the next step. But right now I'm just in the writing phase.
Yeah, I mean, those, your 2 children that you have now, how did that impact on all of these interests that you have? Because going to Chechnya, that's not going to be an easy task to accomplish, considering that, the situation out there.
Well, I mean, in the past, I have had opportunities. I mean, I was a production manager for a film on torture. It was made by the National Film Board of Canada. And the director was Patricio Enriquez, and I was a researcher and production manager on this film, and I was offered to go to both Afghanistan and Iraq, and I said no. A, because at that time it was very dangerous. 2, it wasn't my film. So, I might put myself on my line for my own film. But as I get older and I have kids, I don't think anyone should really put their life on the line for a film idea. There's always a different way to tell the story, whether it's through archives, whether it's through animation, whether it's through recreations, so you have to evaluate the risk, and I trust locals. I'll normally find a fixer or a line producer who knows the territory, knows what's going on, knows people, has contacts, to make sure that I'm not in danger. Because the world has gotten more dangerous in the past 10 years. And just last week, there was a Japanese videographer who was shot dead by Thai forces in Bangkok, and there's a number of people, like in the last year, there's a number of journalists and media professionals who were killed. So it is dangerous, and you have to evaluate every single trip and every single project on a case-by-case basis. And right now, my heart's telling me that it's not safe to go to Chechnya. So I'll see how I can structure the film to kind of avoid that travel, or if not, I'll hire someone else to go for me.
Yeah, maybe Jamel.
No, I'm not sure if I would.
Just kidding there.